countered by three of his Fed colleagues who argued that the central bank needs to remain cautious about inflation. Well, let's speak with Justin Wolfers, an economist at the University of Michigan, for more on this. Justin, what's your thought then? Because we know that he was the sole dissenting vote, 1 out of 11. He wanted a bigger rate cut compared to the 0.25% that we got.
Yeah, it's actually a very radical position. He's arguing that interest rates should be about 2 full percentage points lower than the rest of the Federal Reserve Board, or indeed most of Wall Street believes. And it comes out of a very bizarre and tortured logic. Basically, it says, if you believed every claim the White House has made about the economy, some of which are just miles outside the mainstream, some of which clearly seem to be made up, some of which are just big pieces of ideological propaganda. If you believed all of those and then fed them into monetary policy, then you might believe that the interest rate should be 200 basis points lower. It's just a very strange argument, to tell you the truth.
Well, his views do seem to be quite aligned with those of President Trump, though, who wants bigger interest rate cuts, and he appointed him. Do you agree with critics who feel that this appointment might give the president a bit too much sway in the Fed?
I feel this speech certainly made me worry even more about this. So what did we know coming into this? We knew that the president wanted interest rates to be 3 percentage points lower. Miran does a bunch of tortured math where he pretends to play the role of serious economist and comes up with the conclusion that they should be 2 percentage points lower, awfully close to the president. So, one possibility is he thinks he's there as the president's messenger and he's just doing his job as someone else's plaything. Another is that he simply believes that it's best for his career to come up with the arguments to substantiate an old man's whims, that of course being the president. And another is that he spent so much time inside the White House, he started to believe the stories they tell themselves, which are quite distinct in the economic reality we find ourselves in.
So does that risk the independence of the Fed then? Do you think it's been compromised?
Has it been compromised? It's a very difficult question. I don't know what lies in any man's heart. I do know that just as important as the independence of the Fed is the perception of the independence. That for sure has been compromised. When you've got a man who literally is on leave from his job in the White House, who at his first meeting, before he's had time to be properly briefed, has walked in and said the rest of the Federal Reserve Board is wrong and I alone know that interest rates should be lower, and he dissents. When he puts out this bizarre speech that sort of is based on all sorts of ideological platitudes, you start to wonder and you start to worry. And the problem is that even just that perception is enough, because if people perceive that this is ideology at work, they perceive that this central bank is going to do what's in the president's whims rather than America's best interests. They perceive, therefore, the risk of inflation is just around the corner. And a funny thing about inflation is just the belief that inflation is coming can be enough to create the reality of inflation.
And just very quickly, what will you be looking out for next then from the Fed? Do you see more confrontation between Miran and the other members ahead?
Look, it's a consensus-driven organisation historically, and if there were confrontation, they would make sure you and I didn't hear about it. And to the extent that others disagree, they're going to do so in the politest of possible terms. So those of us who watch this stuff very closely might ooh and ah when someone mentions a coefficient that looks a little odd. But to the broader public, I think this is going to look like it's all quite collegial.
Okay, Justin, thanks very much for your thoughts today. Justin Wolfers, economist at the University of Michigan.